Welcome to Performance Anxiety. This week's guest is Fabio Brienza of Varaha. He moved from Rome as a teenager and found his musical community in Chicago. He compares and contrasts the metal scene in Rome to the scenes in Chicago. He also has a background in film, and we discuss how writing Varaha's music is a lot like making a film. There's tension and release necessary in both to be successful. He also tells me how he incorporates orchestral elements like strings and brass into metal. Check out their epic work at varahaband.com, Prosthetic Records, Bandcamp, or wherever you buy music. Follow Varaha on social media for news. Follow us at Performance ANX. Subscribe, rate, review, share, and now let's give a warm virtual welcome to Fabio Brienza of Varaha.
Got it. Hi, this is Fabio Brienza from Varaha, from Chicago, saying hello, and I'm very excited to be talking at Performance. No, I'll try it again.
Now, I might use that one anyway, because I like to take the worst ones.
Don't, please don't. Performance anxiety. Hi, this is Fabio Brienza from Varaha. I'm very excited to be talking here at Performance Anxiety Podcast. Thanks for having me. Okay, I need to I just want to be a brainstorm about the touring part. I completely forgot about that question. In reality, touring is always a blur. I'm gonna say that. That's a cool thing about it.
I have heard that so many times. Like, you don't remember cities, you don't remember anything. You just kind of remember the really great shows and the really terrible shows. That's. I had Brett from Astronoid on recently. He's like, I don't remember any of the venues. He's like, I remember some of the bands we toured with. And I remember the tours, the shows that were complete disasters. That's about all I remember.
I feel you. Cool. I'm all set here. So whenever you want to get started,
Awesome. Well, what I want to find out first is a little bit about your history, how you got into music, because you're from Italy. Where in Italy are you from?
I was born and raised in Rome, in Italy, and so it's kind of weird. I lived half of my life there and half of my life here in the States. So it's kind of interesting how I have this cultural background in Italy, and I'm very, very grateful for being raised there, because really, even when you're born and raised in Rome, the city affects you. Like, it's not just a tourist. When you're born in Rome, you can walk down the avenues, you can walk around, and you feel the city talking to you. So it's kind of weird to, make a very different parallel between Rome and Chicago, because Rome is like this beautiful frame for a painting, but it's your responsibility to fill that painting with stuff. Chicago, on the other hand, who cares about the paint, the frame, around it? It's like, yeah, it's industrial,
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. This winter suck.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Yeah. I have heard that so much. I've never, Chicago is one place I've never been to, but.
And that's a difference, Chicago is like a industrial frame, but the content, what's inside the painting, it's what talks to me. The diversity of the people, the different cultures, the different languages. The artistic community is absolutely, absolutely amazing. The music community is very strong and diverse, and a lot of us know each other for so many years, and everybody's doing their own thing. So it's not just about doing music. Some people owns a print shop. Some people make T-shirts. Some people own a metal pizzeria or a metal bar, So everybody's doing something very different, but we're all connected.
Okay. And when did you start getting into music? Were you, what did you start playing? How did you get into the whole performance aspect of it?
I don't know. Where do I begin? How far back do I want to go? Because actually, my dad did bring me a vinyl copy of Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Probably, I don't know, I was probably not 11, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he brought me a copy of Led Zeppelin 2, and it was Black Sabbath Paranoid, which I still have, actually, that he gave me, I guess 30 years ago now,
That's awesome.
But it's funny how, maybe I wasn't ready. It didn't talk to me. So I did not understand what that record was.
Okay.
And then in middle school, I had a schoolmate that was a total metalhead. And I'm like, oh, what's this? I like it. This is awesome. And it's kind of funny how, normally people like start off with more like punk, like rock, and then switch to metal. I went from basically like 80s Depeche Mode, The Cure, straight up to Suffocation and D-Side and Morbid Angel.
Wow, you didn't like gradually work your way. You just dove right in.
Full blown Suffocation, he was one of my favorite bands still, and Bolt Thrower, all those things. Wow. Back in the days, like we get these magic vinyls that were so important and so hard to find in Italy. You have to understand that, Okay. And then Iron Maiden came, and I think that Iron Maiden is really, really what made me want to learn how to play guitar. Every album is amazing. I don't know how they do it, because it's that twin to triple guitar attack now is just insane. Yeah, it's meaningful to a lot of us. It has its history, and like Iron Maiden. Like I remember, like probably 93 or 94. Iron Maiden playing like just like out of nowhere an outdoor festival for free. They just played a couple songs. Just hey, Iron Maiden's just coming to Rome and playing a couple songs. I gotta Google it because I can't remember the year, but stuff like that. Italians love that stuff. There's a lot of history in metal in Italy, and Italians love their metal, and it's amazing.
So that was like the Fear of the Dark era Iron Maiden.
Actually, probably it was like, maybe right before, no, actually, you're right. Probably it was exactly when Fear of the Dark, although I found them before that.
Yeah.
Because when Fear of the Dark came out at first, we were kind of weird about it. Like, what's going on here? It
wasn't my favorite. Half that album sounds just like it could be, I don't know, like Bad Company or some, like that song, like Weekend Warrior is possibly the worst Iron Maiden song ever made. But they have some amazing, like Fear of the Dark. The song is incredible.
You know what? I love that record now so much. And I think that, there's a time and place for everything. I think that you're meant to discover records at a specific time of your life.
Yeah.
So, there's stuff that maybe even, when it just came out, I didn't care for. And there's now listening to, there's any band, not just Iron Maiden, there's a record that comes out right now, or a record came out maybe 20 years ago, but it just speaks to a person at the right time because something is happening in that person's life.
I agree completely.
Yeah, so the person needs that record. It needs to hear those words. It needs that music. So, and that's why, there's no such thing as good or bad music in reality, honestly, because, you never know. There's a time in your life you talk so much crap about this band, and like 10 years later, you hear it and like, oh my God, I get this now.
Yeah, that was me with the band Swans. I found out about Swans in 91, I think, with the White Light from the Mouth of Infinity album. And I didn't like it. It scared the crap out of me. It was like my freshman year in college, and I'm just like, this is just weird stuff. I don't know. 25 years later, I ended up having Michael Girard on my show, and I had to go back and listen to a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, this is incredible stuff. I heard the newest album first, Leaving Meaning, and then I ended up kind of working my way backwards. And I mean, I didn't have enough time to go through the entire discography, but I hit, the high points, and I'm like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. And then now I'm going back and listening to the full albums, like The Great Annihilator and Children of God and White Light from the Mouth of Infinity. And it's just amazing, amazing stuff. But back in the early 90s, when I first found out about them, it didn't resonate.
Yeah, it's interesting how that happened. It just, you need to go through something in your life to understand it, and yeah, I can relate. Yeah. So
was guitar your first instrument?
Pretty much. Yeah. Immediately. Well, of course, in elementary school, we played the accordion, You know what? I'm almost corrected. Before I talk about guitar, I think that we had a sub teacher that in middle school that told us we're not going to talk about music. We're going to learn about rhythmic patterns. So we literally spent the whole class doing rounds of balloons, clapping hands, and learning about, the syncopatic beats, and learning about metric, and learning about all those things, which is kind of weird because in the end, music is math, And, of course, it's math that we mold with our experiences and our sensibility, but, it's math in the end.
Yeah.
So we work with sound engineers because they know the math behind what we do, possibly more than we do. And I think that was really, really helpful for me to understand the rhythmic element, the cadence, all these things that really, like, once you know them, you can mess with them so that you're not doing the same old thing.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. You have to know that stuff in order to be creative. And this is one thing a theme that pops up on this show a lot is that you need to have some kind of boundary in order to be functionally creative, because if you don't have a boundary, you're just going to flounder. You don't have like deadlines, maybe one form, or, picking certain time signatures or something. You need some kind of basis in order to be creative. Otherwise, you're just going to be paralyzed with endless options.
Mm-hmm. I especially agree with the deadline, because in the end, like, I don't want to say that art, is a product, but, music is show business. It's half, show and half business. In the end, we are delivering a product. And I'm not saying this in a monetary way. I'm saying this because it is a means for communication. Mm-hmm. I'm something because I want to share something with you.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, especially having hard deadlines for prosthetic, and it really helped us, keep up on our toes, and it helped us, okay, we need to get this done. Nothing will ever be perfect, no matter what. Right. So it's kind of like sometimes I think it's a necessity to just get it out there and just be done with it and share that with the world, because especially right now with what's happening with the pandemic, people need to find that bond. People need that unity. People need to be soothed, or people need to find a connection from the musicians / artists / creatives. And I think there's really a responsibility right now more than ever for the creatives to deliver as soon as possible, really.
Yeah.
Because people are home doing nothing.
Exactly.
You have to make sure. I mean, and that's something I just did recently. I did a collaboration, a remix of The Daughters, and like they just, Nicholas, I became friend with Nick from Daughters, and then he posted that they're gonna, share their stems for people to remix. And I told him, you know what, I don't do this, but sure, I'll do it. And he's like, absolutely, make it happen. And I only have GarageBand at home, a purpose. Wow. I refuse to buy expensive gear because I believe to work with sound engineers, because I want to hear what they have to say. So I do not like to overproduce at home.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I'm like, dude, I only have GarageBand. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make it happen and use the toys I have laying around. And that's when really it clicked on me about, hey, you know what? You may have a crappy Mac with GarageBand, but you know what? Now is the time to deliver. Now it's the time to get something out there, because there's a lot of people that need to, let's call it entertainment. Sure. It need to be entertained. People need something to fulfill their day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many people sitting at home right now, and they're going stir crazy. They've got cabin fever. That you can't go out and do things. You can't go out and experience a new restaurant, or go see a new movie that's come out. You've got to find something to do in your house. So, people like you putting out new stuff, or, bands doing live streams, that kind of stuff is incredibly important. It's helping people keep their sanity.
Oh, 100%. I'm going to jump in on this one because I think it's very important. Like our friends in Huntsman did a live stream. They're also our label mates in Prosthetic.
And also former podcast guests on this show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love Huntsman.
Oh, I love them. They're great. They're good friends, amazing people. They're just the most amazing people.
Yeah, Ray and Chris were on.
And it's funny because when Huntsman did their live stream, and really that was the very beginning of the pandemic, and the chat room blew up. I mean, people, can I swear here? I'm
yes.
sorry. Okay, people lost their shit because it felt like being at a show. It felt like, like we all know, when you go to Chicago, you go to a show. I mean, it's like you're talking like 150, 200 people. We all know each other. It's a big party,
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. All of a sudden, you're in a chat. You're not at a show, but you're in a chat room. And Huntsman is playing the video, but the chat room, we're all being dumb and not being. We're just
having a good time.
We're having a time. Yeah.
I watched that show. That was great. But I think they actually did end up releasing that for as like a download that people could pick up if they want. Like I'm not sure if it was free or not, but.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are doing stuff for free though. Even Prosthetic, record label did a really amazing sound sampler to share, and then you had the Bandcamp Day on May 1st, where a lot of bands, like literally gave their stuff for free. I'm very close friend with the guy from Bong Ripper, because Nick from Bong Ripper actually was in our record. He did some special effects.
Awesome.
And they just straight up, did their whole discography for pay what you want, and I already have all the stuff on vinyl, but I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm gonna have the digital download too now.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of cool that a lot of bands did that.
It was. There's so many bands like Medicine Boy. They put out their entire discography for free, and I think it's still free at this point. I think you can.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah. Medicine. Oh, I love Medicine Boy.
Yeah.
Another podcast guest too, Andre Leo.
Oh wow!
So yeah, man. And this is one of the cool things about this show is that I end up staying in touch with a lot of these guys. Like so Andre, actually they put all their stuff up, but I still paid Andre for stuff just because he was such an awesome guest. So it was up for free. I'm like, I don't feel right. I'm gonna still put a little money in the till for you. So.
Well, the joke that I was having during the Bandcamp Day is that if something was, I try to pay 6.66 for everything. No, let's go. I wouldn't go there. My bank called me. They blocked my card.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Like, what's going on? You have all these charges for 666.
Oh, my God.
So at purchase number 42, they stop. Some of the stuff I couldn't afford. I think that I didn't pay everything, whatever I could. But some people that I know really needed the money.
Yeah.
I helped them out, especially for demos, or especially young bands. I think that I said, absolutely, you're a young band. I'm going to go ahead and give you what I can,
Yeah.
And just round it up. There was a band from Sweden that I had to do the currency to make sure that in US dollar would show up as 666. It was 6.55 SAG, something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, so I had a problem, but it was because I'm trying to think. I had a bunch of stuff, and my bank didn't like converting things to euros or something. They everything that was domestic was fine, but as soon as it had to go overseas, they're like, no, this is weird. So I had to call them up and say, no, I actually want to buy this stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, run it through again and we'll let it go.
But that's probably what happened with me, because I know I got 2 text messages, a phone call from my bank, and they emailed me like, there's something going on in your account. You're unemployed. You haven't worked in a month. Really, I just stayed at home for a month without leaving the house, and all of a sudden I'm just like, shh, fuck it. And my bank probably was like, what's going on?
Something's weird.
Something is, and they're all 666.
Yeah, some cult has gotten a hold of your bank account.
Oh, that's funny. I know my manager at my bank. I told them we were laughing. That's fine.
So, all right. So, at what point did you start playing out with bands? Was that while you're in Italy, or was that when you came over to the U.S.?
Yeah, I was in a band in Italy, and that was and that's actually how I ended up in Chicago. I was actually very active in the metal scene in Italy, and since the mid '90s, and I play in. I'm not sure if I want to get into details, really.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about details.
Bands in Italy, and then that represents who I was, and I carry a lot of that with who I am right now. But it's kind of funny how like immediately, like right before I moved here, like around the late 90s, I actually switched from metal to different genres. I did the opposite. That's when I discovered hardcore and punk, moved to London, and I got exposed to a lot of stuff from Warp Records, you know, like FX Twin, Square Pusher, Autocur, and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And I was doing photography, so I went from doing photography to starting shooting graffiti artists and breakdancers back in the days.
Wow.
So from there, I got exposed to a lot of soul music and ultimately house music, which is kind of funny how Rome is almost like a twin sister to Chicago for the house music community.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of house music in Rome, you know, compared to like, you know, like other cities where you have more techno or gabber and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so, you know, I was already exposed, you know, coming from 80s to death metal, to Scandinavian metal, to hardcore and punk, to electronic music, soul music, house music. And then I moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
And that was weird.
Okay. What made it so weird?
Well, musically, I don't know, maybe because, you know, obviously throughout this journey, you know, I was doing more European sounding music, and then I moved to Chicago, and my very first job was at Reckless Records.
Oh, okay.
I was exposed to literally the best, all the new stuff, and I had the best staff to work with. I mean, I was a dumb 19-year-old kid. I was really fresh off the boat. Yeah. And it's weird because they looked at me like, okay, well, you're doing all this like metal stuff, and here we are, you know, like playing all these. That's the era of Joan of Arc, Tortoise, you know, like all these very Chicago sounding bands that to me it was a new language. I was not used to that.
Yeah.
It's like this cacophony, this, you know, and I say this in a compliment, this cacophony, meaning you have this music that is not like we are used to doing overseas. We were focusing on making something epic and very pentatonic scale focused. And here in Chicago, you had all these bands who like, no, I don't care about making it look pretty. I'm going to show what Chicago's like.
Yeah. You know, that's a great point. You know, if you listen to a lot of European metal, it's very grandiose, very big. And it's like very, very, layered and complex, whereas a lot of the stuff, and I'm just going off of not necessarily Chicago metal bands, but you know, some other alternative style bands from like the early 90s, like Hum. You know, they're very noisy. They're more about shapes and sounds than building a very epic landscape almost of music.
No, I agree 100%. It's weird. You know, there's this I don't give a fuck mentality almost. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not trying to do something classical. Of course, some people I'm just fucking around. Some people I'm experimenting. Some people are purposely having a vision. Like, no, I'm going to show you what having it rough is like, and it's not going to sound pretty.
Right.
And, or I'm going to show you what being fucked up really sounds like, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, moving to Chicago was truly learning a new musical language for me.
Interesting. What brought you to Chicago? What made you decide on Chicago instead of New York or LA or anywhere else, really?
I was supposed to go to New York, ultimately. My goal when I left, you know, I moved to London. I moved back, you know, for a little while. I went back to Rome. And I think that when I went back to Rome from London, Rome didn't cut it for me. You know, it wasn't diverse enough. It wasn't as forward thinking for me. It was poetic and nostalgic and meaningful, but it was not the future that I needed for personal reasons as well. And I remember two stories. First, I was raised watching the TV show Fame. So,
okay, yeah.
I want to go NYU. Number one. Number two, and this is a weird story. You know, we talk about tour story. I'll give you a pre-tour story.
All right.
Like in the late 80s, I was maybe 5. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyhow, we actually have family in New York. Because my mom originally, you know, the reason why I'm here legally is because my mom is originally from the States. Okay. Back in the 70s, they all went to the old world to visit Italy, to visit the old world. my mom met my dad and turned around and told her parents, bye, I'm staying.
Wow.
So because of that, all my mom's side of family was in the States. And because of that, every year we would go to the States on vacation.
Okay.
And then sometimes maybe in the 80s, they all moved, a lot of them moved from New York to the Detroit area, like Royal Oak, Shelby Township, like the suburbs of Detroit, Montclair. They're all over the place, really. And so in other words, I have family in the States. So when I left Rome, no, let me rewind. I'm sorry. I'm jumping stories. Let me continue the story back from the 80s. So maybe 1988, I actually went to New York for a wedding.
Okay.
And I got bored and I left the house.
Uh-oh.
And I walked maybe 3 miles and there was a market underneath a train track.
Oh my God.
And it was an outdoor market. And there was a metal band playing.
Oh, wow.
To date, I wish I knew who that band was. We're talking like I was 5 or 6, but I saw the guys hand banging on stage and playing heavy rock or heavy metal, or whatever that was. I don't know what it was, but I remembered.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when you feel that energy, you just don't forget.
Oh, yeah. It obviously had a big effect on you.
Yeah, of course. I was a kid, but it came later. It's almost like something triggered it later.
Wow.
So at one point, like I said, late 90s, I probably remember about that story of me going, of course they called the police. Oh, my God. I'm like all the New York police officers were probably looking for me somewhere in Brooklyn. And no, not joking. That was bad, actually. There were like 40 police patrols looking for me.
Oh my gosh.
And then I just walked back and like, hi.
Hey, what's up?
Screaming and crying. I'm like, I saw a metal show. So that's one of the big stories along with me watching Fame. And, we talked about music, we talk about photography. So in other words, I decided to merge, and I always wrote poetry and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to merge all these 3 art forms, to combine them and do film. So my goal in 99 was to move to New York and study film at NYU.
Ah, okay.
So my first stop, I just flew to Detroit first because my family from New York moved to Detroit and I stayed with them for a little bit. And I was supposed to be there for maybe like a month and then, figure out, my way to New York. And instead, I went to a movie theater and I saw this guy with tattoos. And I said, you're going to be my friend. I have no shame. So, yeah.
Wow.
So he was working at the movie theater as a cashier and had tattoos. I told my aunt, I think I was like maybe, I don't know. I was 19. I told my aunt, you didn't wait here for a second. I went up to him and said, hey, you're a metalhead or straight edge, right? We're going to be friends.
That's awesome.
And actually, we're very, very close friends. He lives in Austin right now. I was supposed to go visit him in a couple of weeks, but sadly, I have a feeling that the trip is going to be canceled.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So basically, so we became friends. And we actually became friends.
Yeah.
And we ended up hanging out, going to shows, and he was more of a hardcore kid. I was kind of between hardcore. I didn't give a fuck. I never did.
Yeah.
As far as labels, limitations, and we ended up going. He came out. He hit me up. He said, "Hey, let's drive to Chicago." I said, "Okay, cool."
Yeah.
So we drove to Chicago. That's a 5-hour drive just to watch one show.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Nice.
And,
what show was it?
It was a Limprist. Martin from Los Crudos is a punk band from Chicago,
Okay.
and Limprist was a queer, is a gay punk band. Martin is a singer, basically.
Okay.
So I went to the show. There's a bunch of other bands. Dearborn Assass were playing. Old punk band, crust band from Chicago, and we drove 5 hours to catch the show. And some people recognized me. Because, I was wearing a Rome straight edge shirt, first of all.
Okay.
And then, I was doing shows back then as well. Some people looked at me like, okay, you're not from here. Are you from Italy? Where did you play another day? I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
Like, well, it's kind of weird. We said, wow, because like, it's funny how somehow before the internet, we just knew.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
It's hard to express.
It is. And kids nowadays, they're never going to figure that out.
It was like a vibe. We just knew. Like, even when I was in Rome, like, we did not have internet, but we knew everything that was happening in Sweden or Norway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish the story, man.
So, yeah. So after that, actually, like somebody recognized me. We were chatting and said, hey, actually, Martino Moscou, the singer of Empress, and I became friends and kept in touch. And then he hit me up, I went back to Detroit for a second. And he said, hey, my roommate moved out. Why don't you move in with me? We'll be roommates. You don't like Detroit, just come to Chicago. And I was a dumbass 19-year-old kid. I said, cool, sure, let's do it. So I moved to Chicago. And that's when I started working at Reckless immediately. And also, most importantly, I started working at Jinx Cafe. And Jinx Cafe was a coffee shop. And I did not even know back then, that's where we all hung out. Trevor from Pelican, Larry before he moved to LA, they used to be called Tusk, and I saw Tusk being formed.
Yeah, I've got that album.
I think that I was supposed to be one of the guitar players. I gotta ask that, because I'm pretty sure that we talked about me joining Tusk, and then something happened because, I started on this Audience of the End instead. And then the guys from Joan of Arc were there. The guys from Tortoise used to also my recording studio across the street, so they were all there. Wow. And Alkaline Trio, it's weird to me because it seems like I'm probably name dropping right now, but it's more like I need people to understand my perspective coming from Rome. And next thing you know, overnight you're working at a coffee shop, and all these people that you bought the records, they're just your regulars. You see them every day. And they're normal, and they're human, and they have their issues, and they have their flaws, and they have their quirks. And from there, we all grew, move forward together. We all, lift each other up on the way up. We all kind of, understood how hard it was getting to live in Chicago, because I remember, I used to have a 2-bedroom for $400. A 1-bedroom in Chicago now is $1,500.
Jeez.
Oh, Chicago, the gentrification process, has really hurt a lot of people. And I think that because of that, especially, everybody in the community looks out for each other, because we know how hard it is. And we know that we allowed each other to do this. There's businesses where everybody has tattoos and nobody cares, because maybe 20 years ago, there was not a lot of that.
Right.
But then we all united. I don't want to say normalized it, but kind of. It's like, next thing you know, a person from being a musician to a bartender is a business owner. And they can hire their people, and their people are going to have tattoos and mohawks. And next thing you know, you have 50 people. Next thing you know, you have 100 people with tattoos and mohawks working, and that stuff does not matter anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about the integrity and the dignity, and I think that Chicago is it's a blue collar city, and I think that a lot of that really reveals itself in the quality of people who live here.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'd love to go and visit. I've never been able to get to Chicago, but it's one of the places on my list that I really want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I've got a couple more questions for you. I've got a lot, but so you're a filmmaker and you've composed orchestral music. How did you start composing orchestral music?
Well, I think that being raised in Rome, I was always raised around music, and I was always raised with that sensibility. I will give Rome that credit. Okay. Rome is a city that talks to you. I think that sometimes in Chicago, you are forced to put your phone down and look at the city in Chicago and talk to the city itself. And the element of faith and the element of energy and passion in Rome is palpable.
Okay.
And that's what I mean by the city itself talks to you. And it's, it's kind of funny how I was looking at funny videos where like people chanting from, I don't want to spoil it. There's one of my songs talks about this actually. So you're getting a really big spoiler right now.
I wasn't planning on that.
Yeah, but one of my songs actually talks about this, how like in Rome, it will be absolutely acceptable to look at the balcony and sing, and people will join. There is this element of drama and element of passion that Italians are not ashamed of. And there's this element of acknowledging your weakness. And when that happens, you step back and you talk to the city itself and you look for signs, you look for omens. And most often, Rome replies.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Chicago requires a little extra work.
Yeah.
It's getting gentrified. A lot of people are stressed. We are pushed down. It's expensive. The winter hit really hard here. I understand a lot of cities, get hit really hard. Okay. I'm not sure to make Chicago, like an example, but here, a lot of us, we don't have a car, we ride our bikes.
Yeah.
We walk to the train, we walk, it's a walking city, so you're in the midst of it, and, things get hard in Chicago, and also different cultural mindset as well, where, I don't want to talk down about American culture because I think it's absolutely magical and amazing because of its diversity, but you still have this, need to be cool, need to be, there is, I think that my biggest challenge moving here from Rome was to learn about boundaries. You brought up boundaries earlier.
Yeah.
And I think it was very hard for me to understand that coming from Italy.
Because everything's a lot more open.
I think a lot more open. You let people in your world. You open up quicker. You don't need as much of a shield.
Yeah, yeah. And I see what you're saying. I mean, a lot of European countries are a little more community oriented, and America is a lot more about the individual.
Yeah, yes. I mean, of course, I agree 100%. Yes and no. There's obviously, I don't have to generalize, but, partially. But then when it's, again, interestingly, that, and I agree. And also because of that, but when that happens, the individual meets a similar individual, and then they form a new community.
Okay.
Then they form a subculture.
Yes.
And that's when the musical element comes in. So you have these people who are outcasts, who are individual, and meet a like-minded people who are suffering or struggling just as much. Next thing you know, you have two people, then it becomes 3 and 4 and 5. Next thing you know, you have a small subculture of musician who have a very similar mindset. Mm-hmm. So I take half of my mindset from Italy, where it's more, dare I say, I don't want to say nostalgic, but, more classical.
Okay, yeah.
And I merge it with the dissonance of Chicago. And I come from film, which really taught me that, everything should have some kind of meaning, if not just don't do it,
Right.
Like I barely compose with my guitar anymore. It's about what am I trying to say? We talked about it earlier. What am I trying to say? And if this is what I'm trying to say, what is it going to sound like? Mm-hmm. And just after this process, I think about the music.
Okay.
So it's funny how, for the record, the whole record, when it comes down to it, it's a concept album, and I literally wrote a script around the record.
Wow.
And that's when I realized that, okay, just like in a film, you never see a film that's only, that is flat. You never do.
No.
There's always, like ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. There's moments of silence and moments that are extremely aggressive. There's, that's part of the, I'm not sure how to define it really. I mean, it's the narrative itself dictates that ultimately,
Yeah, it's the dynamics of filmmaking. You need tension and release.
And that's what I took that from. I also applied that dynamic to music when I wrote this record. On top of that, I challenged myself, because I knew that I wanted to do, it was one of my childhood dreams to do like orchestra metal. And when I say that, I don't mean like, power metal. When I mean that, I mean metal that has an orchestra where the music is interchangeable. So the main melody goes from a guitar, and then the trombones play it, and then the strings play it, and then the clarinet plays it. It's a dance. You know, I was with watching Fantasia, you know, so. And I mean, all those things blended together. My parents, you know, loved the spaghetti western, you know, so I was raised, you know, listening to Morricone, you know, like, I think that's really what's a game changer, if anything. You know, Ennio Morricone is probably my number one influence in whatever I do, and I think I'm really, really inspired by him because of his limitations. You know, when he recorded his music, he did not have access to an orchestra, and so he had to improvise. You know, sometimes creativity is a consequence of necessity. Mm-hmm. And when I told my bandmates, hey guys, can we do this? They were really excited to hear what I had to do. They were really excited to see if I could pull it off. And I said, hey, I may have this limitation, but then again, going back, we talked about Chicago. It's all about the community. So guess what? I want to shoot up a text message.
There you go. So,
and people's mind blew up. I said, hey, I want to conduct an orchestra for this record. Can you help me? And I think people really lost their minds. I said, absolutely, this is happening. You know?
That's awesome. Now, but before we get too far into that, I want to know how you met the guys that ended up becoming Varaha.
So we have to rewind now a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked about film. I was active in film. I was in LA for a little while. I moved back to Chicago, and I kind of changed career, so I'm not active in film any longer.
Okay.
And I think that because of that, my soul needed a creative outlet. And I did a rock band for a little while in early 2000, but it was not necessarily what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And it's called Charcoal. It's more like, you know, it's very similar to Varaha with no distortion, no harsh vocals, really.
Oh, okay.
But it was really not what I wanted to do because it did not give me like the open palette. I want to do metal. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I want to play metal. But that's what I really loved. And I think that what really happened is that, you know, for many, many years, Billy from Indian, before he passed away, worked across from me, and he knew that I used to play metal overseas, and we shared. You know, like I would play him my riffs on his headphones, like, and he would play me hits like, Fabio, here, Lord Mantis is recording this. Oh, you know, this is the new Indian stuff, you know.
That's awesome.
And he knew that I was a metalhead, and he always told me, own it, do it, make it happen. And at first I didn't want to listen to it. At one point I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So I put up a Craigslist ad. And that's how I met Joel. So I literally said, hey, guy, I'm like, at that point, I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to start a metal band. And I put a press ad saying, looking for bands like Scandinavian metal and also At the Gates and also His Hero Is Gone and whatever. I put a bunch of different names. I think I even put Bolt Thrower there. I think I put OF, At the Gates, Bolt Thrower, His Hero Is Gone, Paradise Lost. Yeah.
Jeez.
And Joel saw that, and he immediately replied. He's like, "Who the heck is this guy naming these bands in Chicago?" You know, Chicago. You had a lot of stoner. No, right now I love the stoner metal community. It's a lot of stoner metal or more aggressive metal, but you know, not many people were doing the more European sounding, you know, genre. So him and I met, and we clicked, and it's like, cool. You know, we're starting a band. You know, little by little, we start adding members, and next thing you know, we had a lineup. Next thing you know, we started playing live. And next thing you know, we did a self-recorded EP, and we got it mixed and mastered, and we released it. Just like the orchestra in smaller scale, I just texted Bruce Lamont, you know, and I said, hey, Bruce, can you put some saxophone in this? I'm like, sure. I got to... And that's kind of how Chicago works, really. You know?
That's amazing.
And then from having 2 metal tracks with Varaha, and an intro with cello and a saxophone, once we sound with prosthetic, that's when I want to go big.
Yeah.
And then, okay, no, I'm bringing the whole orchestra in this one. I'm going to make my teenage self so proud right now. So it's almost like a promise I made to myself when I was 19, and I kept that promise.
It's an amazing album, and it's the only one that I've ever heard with full orchestra, including brass. It's amazing. It's like this epic soundtrack to an incredible movie. It's amazing. And one of my let me pull it up here. One of my favorite transitions is from disbelief into refrained. I absolutely love how those two just work so perfectly together.
Thank you.
The whole album, but the whole album is like that. I mean, you've got these quiet, almost post-rock kind of sections, but then you've got the screaming metal, and then in comes brass. It's amazing.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It was really challenging. I mean, I think that, because we talked about it coming from film, I want to make sure there's a thing called, the art of the invisible. Everything has to seem seamless. Mm-hmm. Everything feels seamless. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we had, I think it's the first time I talked to this publicly in an interview, actually, is that the challenge is that we recorded the orchestra before the metal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, we were on a deadline, going back to the concept of deadline with prosthetic.
Yeah.
And also the people from the symphony orchestra were caught up because they were about to get into very, very busy Christmas season.
Oh, yeah.
So I needed to get him in and out of the studio right before the Christmas season had begun. And because of that, I literally had to plan out to make sure that before we even started recording the metal stuff, that I had everything tracked so that, in other words, I recorded the full length 5 times or 6 times at different BPMs to make sure that, the drummer was happy with the BPM level, but also to make sure that that BPM would match with the symphony orchestra BPM, so I had to literally surgically plan the whole record so that the BPM would change throughout, number one.
Yeah.
B, that would all flow seamlessly. And C, also to make sure that, obviously the root notes would change. There will be some element of, sonar, dynamism. I'm sorry, ESL. Sonar dynamics. I don't know. But yeah, so
I know what you're saying. Yeah. The Sonics.
The Sonic. There you go.
Yeah. But changing that actually helps with the tension in the album. It actually, like we're saying, now you recorded the orchestra. That's set in stone. Now you have to work around that. That's going to help your creativity. Whether if the drummer's not happy, you've got to figure out a way to make it work together.
I think that we did so much pre-production that actually went pretty seamlessly. I think that, a lot of people jumped too soon into recording studio. I think that we did so much planning. Everything was on paper. I had music sheets all over my house for literally 2 months. And everything was planned so well because in this scenario, we could not make those big mistakes because everything had to flow seamlessly and everything has to match. And we also used 3 recording studios, so we had we had 2 sound engineers, 1 co-producers, and 3 recording studios to do this.
Wow.
Because, the orchestra needed their own different, we went for Nick Broste, who worked with Beirut and Wilco and Tassagal. I want to work with him for the orchestra because he understands organic sounds. That's what he does. So when I wanted to work with him, he also performed in Muka Pazza, and that was his world, especially, I love Beirut and he worked with Beirut. So I wanted to learn working from him. And then the soloist, I had a separate like place where I want to give them more. I had Chuck Bontrager from the Hamilton musical. I want to give him kind of like his own room to be comfortable.
Yeah.
I use long time. Of course, I want to work with Mike Lust again. Mike Lust.
Oh, yeah.
Is a friend of mine. He recorded, Emperors by Russian Circles. He did a lot of my, he's just the best person, really. So, of course, I'm going to have Lust record Chuck from the Hamilton,
Yeah. Hey, man, that's amazing.
And then, of course, the rest, the meat, the metal, we recorded a decade because, it's one of the best studios in the city. So,
yeah.
And Adam Stilson co-produced and mixed. Well, he didn't co-produce. He mixed and mastered REP, and he did such a good job that absolutely, we recorded at home, like basically, and he made REP sound so good. Because, Decade is, obviously it's one of the great studios in Chicago. So we all decided absolutely we are going to Decade to record our full length.
Awesome.
So, again, it's not about nepotism, and I want to point that out, really. It's not about nepotism. It's just about being there, really. Who's there, and who's there for you,
Yeah, exactly. It's a community.
And, again, going back to the concept of community, who looked out for me when I just moved here, and I was 19 from Rome, Mike Lust, all these people, that we used to hang out back in the days and believed in me when I was a dummy, like, they gave me a chance. So those people become constant in your life.
The writing for A Passage for Lost Years, was that collaborative? And it's a very complex, dense album. Did you write it all yourself, or was the whole band involved?
No, the orchestra I composed and conducted, so all the orchestral I did.
Okay.
But when it comes to the metal, I don't believe in that actually, because we all fed off each other. Joe Holiday is a co-composer with myself, and I think that him and I are like the yin and yang. We feed off each other. We have very, 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 very similar musical sensibilities. This being said, he would come up with something that I would not think of. And I think sometimes, again, we talk about community. The fact of being together really is what makes the difference.
Yeah.
For example, Refrained from our record. In reality, Refrained should be Refrained Part 2. Because there is a song called Refrained, and when we're together as a band, feeding off each other, and we started jamming. I don't like to use the word jamming because we don't jam per se. We present ideas. But sometimes actually we jam too, actually. And so imagine I'm writing a melody, or Joel is writing a melody, and Joel has a counterpoint to the melody, which is more impactful or meaningful than my original melody. So we scrap my melody altogether, and his melody becomes the new melody.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a game, awesome. Like we feed off each other in that ways, or vice versa. He'll come up with an idea, I come up with something on top of it, and then he drops off his idea and he feeds off of what I'm doing to come up with something different. And that's how Refrained happened. So we scrapped the original song altogether and we collaboratively wrote a song from scratch.
Oh, wow.
And I think that, there has to be this element of human, like I don't believe in the author theory, in film perhaps, because without your crew around you, you are nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that without my bandmates, I would be nothing. Without them pushing me and inspiring me, of course, sure, I composed the orchestra by myself, but without them challenging me and making sure that, to look at me to see and make sure that I could pull it off, like, it definitely gives you that energy that you would not have if you were doing things on your own.
Yeah. And like in music, it's a Varaha album, not a Fabio Brienza album.
It's not. Sometimes I point that out. Yeah, I mean, sure. I function as a band manager, as a band director. I'm wearing a lot of hats. It's technically my choice, but because ultimately I created the band, but when it comes down to it, without Joel or Brian, like, it would not be the same. Yeah. We are, and that's when people ask me, what are your influences? Well, our influences are that we are very, very different individuals. And that's what creates our sound more than anything else.
Right. Now, this is an incredible album. It's a very complex album.
Thank you.
Playing it live, playing the music live has got to be challenging because you're not toting an orchestra with you. How do you arrange it differently, or do you just play it without the orchestral parts, or how do you guys change this from such an immense album to playing it in the live setting?
I think Varaha in a live setting is a completely different beast on purpose. I think that, don't get me wrong, there's two part. It's a two-part answer. Okay. I think that answer number one is that probably eventually we will bring like a partial orchestra with us on tour. We're not there yet. We're a young band. We're not to do that because we will have to pay people. We're not in a position to pay musicians to do that. But actually, most importantly, I also think that, we are a metal band. And I think that, we want people to have these two different versions of Varaha. You have a Varaha at home, which is slower, more pensive, more that, it's a rainy day. That's what you want to hear. You go through some shit. Trust me, you want to hear a record.
Yeah.
The latest one, when you are high as fuck, absolutely listen to a record. Apparently, it sounds really good. But on a live setting, we want fire. We actually play music a couple BPMs faster. We want that kind of live energy. Don't get me wrong. We will play the ethereal parts acoustically, but we're not going to bring the orchestra on stage. We're just going to play the metal tracks, and we're going to make an energetic, dynamic experience, so that you have two very different experiences from seeing us live, where it's more forward and slightly faster, energetic, powerful, versus the more calming version of Varaha at home.
Okay, now I did see a video of you performing with an orchestral ensemble live.
I did that, yeah.
That was really cool. Now, do you do that often? Is that going to happen again?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. I don't know. Because, a lot of people have been asking that it requires a lot of preparation to do something like that. And I think that I would love to do it, but if I would do it again, it would have to be with Varaha. I would bring everybody and do like a one-time special show, and probably a benefit, I think, and bring the orchestra live. And then, I don't know. You never know. Sometimes, like, I don't want to say I don't want to plan these things. We talked about meaning, like, is there a reason for me to do that right now? Yeah. I think at the very time there was a reason for it, because Chester was on tour, and like the Empire production, hit me up saying, "Hey, I heard you were doing some solo stuff. Do you want to do this?" I'm like, "Sure." And I misunderstood the date, and I did not realize that literally I had 1 month to prepare this.
Oh, wow.
And that was my motivational deadline to make it happen. And I had a reason to really get it together. And I think that right now, there's a couple of things happening that I cannot talk about. Mm-hmm. But right now, what is important and where are we right now? With the pandemic, right now, I could not pull it off.
Oh, yeah.
Does you think about that? Like right now, like how can we do something that, because the recording studios are closed, by the way, in Chicago. The government has a stay-at-home order. So, like, yeah, it gets complicated. I'm not ready to have this conversation. We'll just, I don't want to answer it because I would love to, but let's just be patient, just wait around and see what happens.
Yeah, because we don't know what the future holds yet.
Yeah.
But now you did do a really great short film, Quarantinas, with David Leap. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? Because some of Varaha's music is in that.
Exactly, going back to what we just talked about. Like, okay, we cannot go to a studio. Okay, I cannot get an orchestra together right now. Okay, I cannot do all these things. What can we do? And I think that despite the suffering, beautiful things are happening. And I think that, like, it is our responsibility to keep creating and producing if we can. Mm-hmm. And secondarily, I'm a bartender for work part-time. I bartend at 3 of the main music venues here in Chicago because obviously it's easier to take time off when you're touring and stuff like that, so it's just efficient with my lifestyle. But, so music is literally my world. And now there's no tours. If there's no tours, the bartenders are unemployed, the photographers are unemployed, the videographers are unemployed, the merch people are unemployed, the booking buyers, town buyers, the booking agent are unemployed. So, I think that I approached our longtime collaborator, David Lee, who, again, we talked about, he's been there for us since day one.
Right.
He believed, again, we talked about people who you carry with you in your journey. Generally, the people who've been there with you since day one are the people that you will keep with you throughout.
Yeah. And
David Lee has been there for us since before we recorded the EP, taking pictures of us. And then the record, obviously, he did all photos for Passage and stuff. And during the pandemic, I told him, we got to do something, man.
Yeah, I like it.
And I said, we need to deliver something that is meaningful for the people. And because, I know he's a professional, he generally works commercials for Adidas, Nike, and he is also unemployed.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was a photographer for a decade or more, went to college for it, and you're independent. You don't work for anybody. You work for yourself. Even if you've got that great Adidas contract, you're not an Adidas employee. So,
you're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a freelance worker. You're right. Yeah. And he's unemployed just like us.
Yep.
So I know he did. So, because of his commercial work, I know of his expertise of drone shots, and I saw some of his footage and I told him, dude, we need to do this. Let's do this for the Chicagoans, and let's do a video for Disbelief, because, Disbelief, the word itself, that's how we all feel here in Chicago. Going from a very, very international city where everybody's out, Michigan Avenue is packed, The Magnificent Mile is packed, to nothing, to a ghost town. And everybody literally is in disbelief because they cannot recognize their own city.
Yeah.
And that's why I picked that track. So I told David Leap, let's shoot a video of Chicago and let's use Disbelief as the music to try and connect with the people. And it's funny because, Disbelief itself, the music, in the song, you have a Broadway star, Chuck Bontrager from a Hamilton musical. He's a concertmaster from Hamilton.
Oh, okay.
Playing at the same exact time as Bruce Lamont, which is, super independent venue, like saxophonist, like he's in Yakuza. He played in every metal band in Chicago. He put saxophone in. He's an amazing person. So you have these different worlds. You have the independent world, Empty Bottle, or, other venues, like smaller venue, like Hideout or Sleeping Village, to Broadway, but now we are all in the same plane.
Yeah, everybody's equalized.
Everybody's equalized. No matter if you're from Broadway musical or from the Empty Bottle, we are all unemployed.
You're unemployed. Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why, it works, because, really we're on the same page in Chicago right now. So we only have each other, and then it's our challenge and our responsibility to do something. And Quarantinas, I told David Leap, it's not about Varaha. I do not want to brand this as a Varaha music video.
Okay.
I told him, this is about you. This is about the people who work behind the scenes. This is about the people who are also unemployed, because, like you said, we're all on the same field now. We're all unemployed. So we really, ultimately it's his film, was he edited and he had our music. So, it's not a Varaha music video. It's David's Leap video with our music, because it tells his story. He's part of our team, but he's also unemployed.
Yeah.
And it represents all those people who work in the arts and entertainment industry who got fucked.
Yeah. Well, it's a very eerie video. It's really amazing. And I really recommend everybody watching. I know it's on YouTube, right? Is there anywhere else that would...
Well, NBC premiered the video. So, our premiere was at NBC 5. So you can just probably just go on NBC or our website. If you go to our website,
yes.
It's varahaband.com. We link to everything there.
Awesome.
Well, I'm gonna add something else to it. Actually,
yeah.
Community, because I think it's really cool what Prosthetic Records did. Because I was talking with A&R Steve Joe about it, and it's very interesting how we made a point, even in the caption of the video of Quarantinas, to link to all the music venues who have GoFundMe for their staff.
That, you know what? I didn't even think about that. That's a great point.
So, because the whole core of the video was about the people who work behind the scenes, that includes the bartenders, the talent buyers, the booking agents, at the music venues, and I think that it was very important for us that Prosthetic, we talked back and forth, and we finally finalized together a list of all the venues that have benefits, and especially we linked with the Chicago Reader, because they made a fantastic link with all the places that needed support in Chicago.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing to do, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I didn't even think about that. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Now, I want to thank the guys at Brimminghorn Meadery for getting us together, because I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, because they, again, former podcast guests, and they're like, you got to talk with Fabio from Varaha. I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. So they were able to hook us up. So I'm really happy they did, man. Thank you for spending so much time. I've had you for well over an hour now, and I know you got stuff to do. Thank you so much for spending so much time and answering my questions and telling me a lot more about how you got into this whole insane world of metal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Where can people support the band? How can they pick up the latest album and keep following you guys, so when the new stuff comes out, they can pick that up too?
Well, of course, our website, varahaband.com, is linked, to all the different, outlets at the very bottom, like social media and such. There's a smart URL. The Prosthetic has set up with all our links as well. smarturl.it/Varaha.
Okay.
So that links to all, to all the different stores, or Bandcamp as well. We run Bandcamp too.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you again for coming on. It's been so awesome talking to you. It's been so much fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It was amazing. Thank you so much.